I messed up, cheated overseas, and now my marriage is broken. Airport coffee tasted like ash. Sarah squeezed my hand, a familiar gesture, but it felt hollow. Have a good trip, she said, her voice a little too bright. Bring me back something nice. I nodded, managed a weak smile. Of course, Barcelona. I'd been looking forward to this architectural conference for months. Not just the professional development, the networking, the escape from the soul-crushing routine of Chicago suburbia. Lately, everything felt beige. The house, the job, our marriage. Sarah was a good woman. Smart, kind, dedicated to her students. But somewhere along the way, the spark had fizzled. Date nights became Netflix nights. Passion turned into comfortable coexistence. We were roommates with a shared mortgage and a dog. Barcelona was different. The air thrummed with energy, the architecture was breathtaking, and the people. I checked into the Hotel Arts, which felt like an architectural marvel itself. And then I met Chloe. She was American, an expat working for some tech startup in the city. We bonded over our shared frustration with the conference keynote speaker. She was funny, quick-witted, and radiated a confidence I found incredibly alluring. That first night, we ended up at Tapa's bar, talking for hours about everything and nothing. Architecture, travel, life goals, regrets. The wine flowed freely, and the conversation deepened with each glass. There was an undeniable electricity between us. I knew I was playing with fire, but I couldn't seem to stop myself. I hadn't felt this, alive, in years. I called Sarah that night, but the connection was bad. How's everything, she asked. Good, I lied. Conference is great. Lots of interesting stuff. Glad you're having fun, she said, a hint of weariness in her voice. Don't stay out too late. The guilt gnawed at me, but the lure of Barcelona and of Chloe was too strong. Next few days were a blur of lectures, workshops, and stolen moments with Chloe. We explored the Gothic Quarter, marveled at Gaudi's Sagrada Familia, and ate paella on the beach. We talked, laughed, and touched each other with increasing frequency. A hand brushing against a back, a lingering gaze, a shared smile. The air crackled with unspoken desire. One night, after a particularly potent bottle of Rioja, we kissed. It was electric, forbidden, and utterly intoxicating. Shame washed over me immediately afterward, but the feeling was fleeting. The desire was too overwhelming. I went back to my hotel room, my head spinning. I almost called Sarah, almost confessed everything, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I told myself I'd end it with Chloe, that I'd come clean to Sarah when I got home. But I didn't end it. The next day, I went to Chloe's apartment. The affair was intense, passionate, and all-consuming. We were lost in our own little world, oblivious to the consequences. I told myself it was just a temporary escape, a vacation fling. But deep down, I knew I was kidding myself. Maria, a local architect who was helping coordinate some of the conference events, saw us together one evening. We were having dinner at a small restaurant in Elborn, holding hands across the table. She gave me a knowing look, a look that made my stomach drop. The world suddenly felt very small. The rest of the trip passed in a haze of guilt and exhilaration. I was living a double life, and I was terrified of getting caught. I tried to compartmentalize, to keep Sarah and Chloe in separate boxes, but it was impossible. The flight home was agonizing. I replayed every moment with Chloe in my head, every kiss, every touch. I knew I had made a terrible mistake, one that could destroy my marriage. Sarah met me at the airport. Her smile seemed forced, her eyes guarded. The drive home was silent and strained. Things unraveled quickly. I tried to act normal, but Sarah wasn't buying it. She kept asking me questions about Barcelona, about the conference, about my colleagues. I stumbled over my answers, my lies becoming increasingly transparent. Then one evening, she confronted me. She had been going through my phone, something she'd never done before. She found the pictures, explicit, undeniable proof of my betrayal. Snaps Chloe had sent me laying in bed. The fight was brutal. Tears, accusations, recriminations. Sarah was furious, heartbroken, and utterly devastated. I tried to deny it at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. Finally, I broke down and confessed everything. The words tasted like poison in my mouth. I watched as the light died in Sarah's eyes. The woman I had vowed to love and cherish was now looking at me with pure hatred. "Get out," she screamed. "Get out of my house," I didn't argue. I packed a bag and left, the sound of Sarah's sobs echoing in my ears. I ended up at a cheap hotel on the outskirts of town. The room was sterile and impersonal, a reflection of my own empty life. I called David, my best friend. He listened patiently as I recounted the whole sordid tale. He didn't condone my actions, but he offered a shoulder to cry on. "You really screwed up, man," he said. "Big time. I don't know if you can fix this." I knew he was right. The next few weeks were a nightmare. I moved into David's spare room. Sarah refused to speak to me. I sent flowers, wrote letters, begged for forgiveness. Nothing worked. Eventually, we agreed to try couples therapy. The sessions were excruciating. Sarah was cold and distant, unwilling to let go of her anger and resentment. The therapist tried her best, but it was clear that the damage was irreparable. Then Chloe called. She wanted to know if I was coming back to Barcelona. She wanted to continue our relationship. That's when I finally realized the depth of my mistake. The affair wasn't some romantic escape. It was a selfish act of destruction. I told Chloe it was over. She was angry and hurt, but I didn't care. I had to focus on trying to salvage what was left of my marriage. It was too late. Sarah and I decided to separate. The divorce papers were drawn up. We divided our assets, our lives becoming irrevocably intertwined. I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment. The silence was deafening. I spent my days at work, trying to focus on my projects, but my mind was always elsewhere, replaying the events of the past few months. One evening, I found myself staring at our wedding photo. Sarah and I, young and in love, full of hope and promise. I remembered the vows we had made, the dreams we had shared, and I realized that I had thrown it all away. I went back to therapy, this time on my own. I needed to understand why I had done what I had done, why I had risked everything for a fleeting moment of passion. The therapist helped me confront my own insecurities, my own dissatisfaction with my life. I realized that I had been running away from my problems, instead of facing them head-on. Sarah and I had one last therapy session together. It was tense and awkward, but we managed to have an honest conversation. Sarah admitted that she was still angry, but she also acknowledged that I seemed genuinely remorseful. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Mark," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "But I hope that one day you can forgive yourself." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I'm alone now, living with the consequences of my actions. I know I have a long road ahead of me, a road filled with pain, regret, and uncertainty. But I'm determined to learn from my mistakes, to become a better person. Maybe, just maybe, one day Sarah will forgive me. But even if she doesn't, I owe it to myself and to her to try. The silence of my apartment is a constant reminder of what I've lost. The wedding photo on my desk feels like a cruel joke. I'm starting individual therapy, a daunting but necessary step. I understand now that my actions were not just about Chloe, they were about a deeper dissatisfaction within myself. I have to face that, fix that, or I'll just repeat the pattern. Maybe someday Sarah and I can even be friends, but that's a distant hope. For now, I just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. The weight of what I did is crushing, but I deserve it. This is my penance.